Good morning. Welcome to the Oldish TV. As always, I'm your host, Karen, and it is my pleasure to welcome you. I hope you're all enjoying a quiet Remembrance Day or Memorial Day, depending on where you are, and that you are, in fact, taking the time to remember those who fought for our freedoms. Just a short while ago, we had a Royal Canadian Air Force Hercules jet fly straight down Main Street. I was able to watch it out the front windows here from the studio. And as it happened, we are on the flight path for the 2020 Remembrance Day flight. So that was really an extraordinary event to see. They are a huge aircraft and it was flying very, very low. So it was great to be able to see that. So, that formed part of my Remembrance Day today. And of course, along with everybody else, uh, a little while ago, we took a moment to just be silent and say a prayer and give thanks. So I hope that you are having a lovely day. Today, I want to talk to you about something that occurred in my business life, and I'm going to relate it to you. A colleague passed away very suddenly about a week and a half ago. And when I say colleague, I've talked many times on this program about how I am the board chair for our hospital board this year. It's a board I've been on for this is my ninth year now, and this year I serve as chair. And our CEO passed away very suddenly, and I mean, certainly he was somebody that those of us on the board and others in the organization worked with closely. But when something like that happens, it throws an organization into crisis management, not because we don't know what to do, but because it's an unexpected event and something that is certainly an abnormal event in our day to day lives. But, that happens in our day to day life as well. So I wanted to talk to you about it today and relate what we did in our crisis management process to what you can do in your life for yourself. I have a friend who's a chef who has a saying that always makes me giggle a little. It's the 5 P's. Prior preparation prevents poor performance. He is a huge believer in being prepared for any eventuality in his professional life. And I am too. I believe in that. And as an organization, our hospital certainly has a book full, several books full probably, of policies that we can follow. And this was no different. There were policies to follow, and we did. So, you know, let's start by saying that if somebody in your life passes away suddenly or has anything happen that is out of the norm of your day-to-day routine. That could be a car accident, it could be a heart attack, it could be an unexpected surgery that takes you out of the loop for 6 weeks. It could happen to you or it could happen to someone you love. Of course, we don't want it to happen to anybody, but I'm going to talk to you today about your personal preparation in case this happens in your life, because after all, it is only your life and your preparations that you can really control. So I'm suggesting that you make a plan. Much like a corporation has a plan, you need to have a plan in your life so that there are processes to follow, so that everybody knows what to do, and so that there are no loose ends that somebody, at some point down the road goes, oh my God, I forgot to feed the dog, that kind of stuff. There needs to be a process. So, I'll just take you through this step by step. The first thing we did as a corporation revolved around communication. People needed to know what had happened, but there were different levels of people needing to know what had happened. In the early moments, it was my executive members, it was senior leadership. We all needed to be on the same page about next steps. People needed to be informed. Um, you know, if the unthinkable happens in your life, there are people who need to know. Your inner circle, if you will. In my world, that would be my children and, some close friends. In your world, you have your own um, neighborhood, if you will, your immediate neighborhood that needs to know about this sort of stuff. Um, you don't want people finding out in unfortunate ways. I think back anyway, to Swissair 111. Now, that was an aircraft that crashed in the ocean off the coast of Nova Scotia in 1998. In those days, the officials of Swissair had basically 3 days until media arrived at the site. They had 3 days to fly executives over from Switzerland to Nova Scotia. They had 3 days to find the black boxes. They had 3 days to gather the facts. They had 3 days to inform the relatives of the passengers of Swissair Flight 111. They had 3 days to put together a presentation so that when they finally had the opportunity to do a media conference, it was pretty factual. They knew what had happened. They knew why it had happened, um, or pretty much they knew why it had happened. But the focal point of why I'm telling you this is they had 3 days. These days, it seems amazing to think that 22 years ago, it wasn't that long ago. Most of us remember that, but so much has changed. These days, anybody has one of these laying around, you're lucky if you've got 3 seconds before the word spreads. Now, remember the saying, good news travels fast, bad news travels faster? If there are people that should not find out on social media, should not find out because somebody else knew, and is that person in your life who just can't keep a secret, loves to share what they know, then that is the person who should be on your immediate contact list. Okay? That internal communication needs to be defined, and you need to be the one to define it. You may have several circles of friends and business colleagues who should know, who should be on that first tier of communication. Don't expect people to know. I have several different groups of friends. They don't commingle with one another. Not necessarily. I mean, they may know of one another. We may have, some people who are sort of kind of in both groups, but one group would not necessarily know to advise people in the other group. So you need to be that person who writes out the list. Make sure you include their phone numbers, their email addresses, however people like to stay in touch. These days, I have a lot of text communication. I mean, it's COVID, right? We're not seeing each other socially the way that we normally do. So my text conversations are very, very active. I have several of them going at any one time and throughout the day. It's just the way I am. You may have a different form of communication chain. Whatever that is, define that for yourself, but make that list of first tier contacts. It's really important. Now then, the next thing we did was consider who else needed to be notified. In our organization, the board, by the way, had already been informed. They were sort of the second tier after the executive, because the executive had to make some decisions, then it was the board. But there's another tier of communication. For us, it was the mayor. It was people that our hospital works with quite closely, the collaborations with other facilities nearby. They needed to find out. It was people who used to hold senior leadership positions with us, but their contracts had expired, they had moved on, but they still had worked very closely with us. They needed to be informed, and so they were. That was our next group. In your second tier, it might be your neighbors. It might be that crazy uncle who maybe didn't make the first tier. It could be distant cousins, people you see just once a year or so, but they are related, and they do need to be given the respect to be informed. It could be bankers, lawyers, investment counselors. Again, you get to define what happens next. Somebody needs to be in charge of looking at your calendar. You may have appointments coming up. I mean, in a corporate world, if there's an appointment coming up, somebody else takes the appointment. And that was certainly a conversation we had. And as board chair, I was the one who said, move ahead. Everything moves ahead because as an organization, things need to do that. In your personal life, it's going to be different. Um, Things don't necessarily move ahead in the same way. Appointments may need to be canceled or altered. If you are the one who has passed away, the appointments are with organizations that need to be advised of your passing. So somebody needs to be assigned to the communications beat. Okay. The next thing we did was develop a written communication. So that would have been for um, external people who needed to be advised. So in our case, it was media, it was larger healthcare organization people. In your life, that could be service clubs. It could be the book club at the library. It could be the hockey team or the soccer team. It could be somebody that you are a big brother or big sister to. All of these people probably should be advised at some point. It's the people who need to know, but aren't urgently the people who need to know. Okay. The next thing we did was turn our attention to filling the position on an interim basis. Now, fortunately for us, we have policies that defined how that process moves forward. Also, fortunately for us, we had had that conversation a couple of months ago. It wasn't related to the individual passing away because, of course, we had no expectation that that would happen. It was more related to contractual obligations. His contract was coming up in less than a year. And for those of you who work in corporations, you know that executive positions typically take lengthy periods of time to fill. So we had already discussed who might fill that position on an interim basis if the individual didn't wish to re-up his contract, or even if he did re-up the contract, but decided after a year's time, yeah, I think I really want to retire. Um, Contracts are not carved in granite. People are not handcuffed to them. Stuff happens. So an individual had already been identified. In your life, that might be somebody to take care of things on an interim basis, like finances, getting the bills paid, getting the funeral arrangements paid. This could be your executor, but it happens that executors don't know that they're executors. It happens that executors live far away and can't quite get there. But what you don't want is in the short term, the hydro being turned off. In the short term, you don't want the food in the refrigerator to be spoiled. You don't want the lawyer not to know. You know, Sometimes advising certain people triggers other events or other processes kick in. So somebody needs to be in charge of all of that for the short term. The executor will take care of that in the longer term. The next thing we did was gather up projects and we prioritized them and redistributed them. In your personal life, this is going to be literally who feeds the dog and cat, who picks the kids up after school, who takes grandma to her doctor's appointments, those kinds of things, as well as who cuts the grass and who plows the snow. Those things need to be organized so that gaps are filled. Gaps have to be identified and gaps have to be filled. So that's really important. On a personal level, in our corporate world, in our corporate event, our individual's family 100% lived in another province, in a faraway place. And because of COVID restrictions, it was very difficult for that family to consider coming here. So somebody locally had to be designated to take care of looking after last wishes, um, cleaning out the house, finding family keepsakes, because the reality is that all that stuff was not going to be shipped to the faraway province. That just wasn't going to happen. In our personal lives, this happens as well. Our children grow up, they move away because of jobs, because of marriages. They could be 3 hours away, but they could be in another province. They could be in another country. They could be on another continent. Coming back to where you live is not always practical. It could be very expensive. And the more practical thing to do is have somebody locally take care of all that stuff. But you know what? It could be you or me that, our children have grown up and we may have chosen to move to a faraway place to follow a passion. The path not followed, have a different experience. So we could literally be the one in the faraway place. So if that is you, if you are the person in a faraway place, make sure you have somebody locally who can stand in for your loved ones should the unthinkable happen. This is your list to make, remember. So, you know, all of this stuff needs to be looked after. All the while, as all of this is happening, people are grieving. People grieve in different ways. In our organization, there are people, I mean, everybody certainly knew what this gentleman looked like and had some level of interaction with him, but not everybody worked closely with him. So everybody was sad, but the people who worked closely with him were grieving in a different way, on a different level. That will be the case in your personal life too. People will grieve in different ways and on different levels. And of the people who knew you very well or know you very well now, there will be people who are able to just dig in and get things done. There will be people who will melt into a puddle and be frozen in time, unable to do anything. When you're making your lists and assigning your people to take care of this and that in your life, should you pass, or even should you find yourself in hospital as a result of a car crash, an unexpected surgery. I mean, remember, this doesn't include just death. You should make your lists so that, you know, it's really more about the unexpected than it is about you vanishing off the face of the earth. Think of your lists that way. Yes, they certainly have a place should you pass away. They also have a place should you need somebody to step in for you quickly. Okay? You want to choose the people who are not going to melt into a puddle. You want to choose the people who will move forward and take grandma to that appointment. Make sure the salad doesn't spoil in the fridge. Make sure the lawyer is notified so that other events can be triggered. Like you just need the people who are doers instead of freezers. No disrespect to the people who freeze, none at all. We all react to everything differently. But when stuff needs to get done, you need to be sure that there are people who are able to do it, who are assigned to the various tasks. Okay, so sit down and make your lists. Plan. Prior preparation prevents poor performance. I'm going to, remind you again of the saying that my friend the chef constantly says. He says it to his staff all the time, but he says it to his friends too. The 5 Ps. All right. I want to tell you also today about some articles that we have just posted on theoldish.com. So you can find those articles here. I'll show you the crawl. It's going right above me here, theoldish.com. Yes, I used to put it down below. But you know what? There are captions that end up down below here, and they go right over top of this. So to avoid confusion, I moved the crawl. But let me show you a couple of things that we have posted. This has been posted. And I feel like this is something that we need to be aware of in COVID times. People are reacting to stress in different ways. And eating disorders, in a world that we don't control, an eating disorder can be the one thing that somebody feels they can control. So that is an article that was just posted this morning. I will remind you of another article that we posted. Let me just go back here. Oldish Living, I think it is. No, it's Caregiver Central. This is where this is, and it is our Oldish Gift Guide 2020. And as we move into the middle of November, people will be looking at their Christmas lists. I am not one who likes to put up a Christmas wreath. until Remembrance Day has passed. So my Christmas wreath will be up tomorrow, not today, tomorrow. Um, I know a lot of people have been decorating for Christmas very early. I've seen a lot of posts on Facebook about that. And I have one of my grand dogs with me right now, so I've been out walking her, and I'm quite startled to see the number of Christmas wreaths on the front of a house. I don't feel good about that. But tomorrow, my Christmas wreath will be out. No disrespect to people, I don't think, because I think we are all reacting to COVID in a different way. People are looking for ways to be happy and to find something that brings them joy. And so there are a lot of Christmas trees that have already gone up. I don't put mine up until way later, but Christmas wreaths have gone up, and Christmas trees have also gone up. And so um, in line with that will be Christmas shopping or holiday shopping if you celebrate Hanukkah or whatever it is that you celebrate and you need a gift for. Check out our Christmas gift guide 2020, and hopefully you'll find some great suggestions or at least inspiration there for you. As I said last week when we reviewed this entire list, there are gifts there that cost nothing. There are gifts there that several people can go in on. There are things that are homemade. There are things that can be purchased. There are 65 different suggestions. So you will find, at the very least, inspiration there for people who are difficult to buy for. I will leave you with that thought today, and I will leave you with your homework of doing your crisis management plan. I think it's really important. I believe in being prepared and I believe in being proactive. So hopefully you will take that note. And, I've actually even put on my list to do a bit of a process sheet. I'm not going to promise when it'll get done, um, but I will do a process sheet at some point that you can follow in your own life. Define this, think of that, and I will get it up in our tools section. So it might not happen for a month or two. There's a lot of other stuff we're working on, but it'll be there. So until next Wednesday, thank you for spending the time with us today. Do take care of one another, especially take care of yourselves. Do remember that it takes a village to age a senior. Thank you, everybody. Be well.